Good morning. So the Dow bounced back. Trump dropped new tariffs and inflation still being hard-headed, man. Welcome to Sunday Finance Church. This is the show brought to you by the Hood, the Black Wealth Rebels. My name is Jimmy. I'm joined by my brothers, Kamari and Corey. How are you gentlemen doing this morning?
Man.
Good morning, but I'm not
Good
here.
morning.
Hey, listen, man. I just, you could be here at least for the check-in, beloved. I know that you got stuff going on and all that, but I'm checking in on you. How are you?
I'm tired.
Yeah.
You use the tide, huh?
I was tired. Y'all
You know what?
slandered me yesterday.
I see this is not streaming on the. Let me see if I can add the. There we go, the Bada Hood Facebook joint too, man. Let's see if I can add it while we started, man. Is that possible, Kamari?
Yeah, you can do it.
All right, there we go. So I want to make sure it's on there too, because we got folks over there that be looking up.
And put it behind the village as well.
I'm doing. Listen, man. I don't know if I could do that while we on air, because but it will be there. You handle that. But Corey, how are you, beloved?
I made it through yesterday, and I woke up today, so I'm good, man.
Yo, we had Corey out in the streets yesterday, man. After a couple hours, man, Corey's social battery was on E. Well, we forced him to stay outside, so I'm shocked my brother made it this morning, but we are here, man.
I was on absolute zero. I was like, you know what? Yeah, I'm ready to go home. They was like, no, bro, we still got more stops to make.
Hey, listen, man. The work got to get done, man. Also, I want to send a special shout out to PABJ. That event yesterday was
yes, indeed.
It was dope. It was inspiring, and I had a ball. So,
and besides being dope and inspiring, it was well thought out and well put together, right? So there's a lot of dope, inspiring things that have like lots of technical flaws. I thought yesterday's event was well put together and well thought out from top to start to finish, and it accomplished the goal that it set out to accomplish, which was to unify and link people together to be able to do things. So shout out to the PABJ for that.
Yeah, man. The event was dope. It was the first annual. They're saying it's the first one. It's going to be more emerging media conference. It was held at Community College of Philadelphia. So we had a presence there. Corey was manning our table for us. We got to step our table game up, which we will, by the way.
Yeah.
But Corey was manning the table. Kamari and I spoke with a couple panels, so we had a full presence there. It was dope. It was a lot of legends in the building too. So the whole conference. I mean, it was Friday and Saturday. So just want to make sure we send a shout out to PABJ, and say thank you for the invite. For our team and whatnot. So that was super dope. I see we got some folks in the building, man. What's up, Kamari? You about to say something?
We're all members, so.
This is true.
We're all members, so.
This is true. Hey, Shelby's in the building.
I don't know if Corey still has his membership.
Man, listen, bro.
Unless they revoke my joint, I should still have it. I mean, they might have.
Yo, shout out to my brother Karan too, man. Karan came up with a new nickname for Corey yesterday, man. He said for now on Corey is known as 9-7, man. He said because once we got the year 1997, man, Corey just stopped keeping up with technology, with music.
That is not true.
Corey said is 9-7. He's stuck in 9-7. He's not leaving, man. As the kids say 6-7, we see Corey now. We say 9-7, but Shelby.
This is only partially true. It's only partially
true.
I see Shelby. Shelby is a TikTok legend over here. But Shelby, I actually wanted to get your feedback about everything, and I know you probably covered it on your page, and I'll go check that about what's going on with TikTok, and it's kind of relevant to some of our stories today. What's going on with TikTok, and will the platform remain the same, or will they F the algorithm up to the point where no one wants to be there? So I would love to get your feedback in terms of what's going on with TikTok. Like, is it somewhere that you're still going to plant your flag, or are you out of there? Thunder's in the building. What's up, Thunder? Finally on time today. Hey, listen, man, we appreciate you being up with us. Don, what's good, Don? Jamil's in the building. What up, though? Detroit's in the building. What's good? Oh man, we got down south. We got East Coast. All we missing is West Coast to check in with us. But then again, it's like 7 o'clock in the morning over there. So our folks on the West Coast probably not pulling up this morning. Hey, listen, if the Vikings and Steelers can get up, y'all can get up for us as well, man. So what we're going to talk about today, though, we got new tariffs on trucks. We got tariffs on drugs and furniture. The Fed is fighting itself again, and big tech might be next on the trade list. So it's a lot going on in the world of economics and finance. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna give you the real breakdown though, not a Wall Street. You know, we keep it culturally relevant over here on our Sunday finance show. So, but let's start talking about these tariffs though. Let's get into the hold up. I gotta make sure I show this. The West Coast is tapped in, so we got the West Coast here. So we are
All right,
covered
West Coast
all
here.
across the nation. West Coast, salute the CT. So we got everybody here, man. We got everybody here. Brand, what's up, Brandon? What's going on? What's going on? How are you? All right. So Shelby said, worry about it if China will accept the BS valuation. A deal is not a deal until both sides sign.
I like that. I like that thought process.
There we go. So he's saying that as y'all president says, China hasn't officially signed yet, so there ain't no deal. Announcing a deal on one side signs is wild, but it's on brand though, so it is what it is. All right, so we got everybody tapped in. We got the East Coast down, South, West Coast. Everybody's tapped in. You know what I'm saying? So let's talk about these tariffs though, right? The Dow actually went up after the tariffs were announced, right? So he announced, listen to this one, y'all. 100% tariffs on branded drugs, 25% on heavy trucks, and 30 to 50% on furniture, right? But here's the thing, though. The investors kind of shrugged it off. The Dow, S&P, and Nasdaq all climbed on Friday. So is it one of these situations where, like, no one's falling for the banana in the tailpipe anymore? Pause. Or you know, what's going on with these new tariffs and give me your perspective in terms of why the market reacted the way they reacted.
I mean, can I keep it a thou while?
Of course.
They sick of bullshit. They sick of bullshit, man. Like they like, look, man, fuck, like what the fuck is wrong with you? Like they just like whatever, man. Like you can do whatever you want to do. We gonna do what we need to do. We gonna hike these prices on the consumer. And then at some point, this shit, when you get out of here, we gonna fix all this dumbass shit that you're doing. Like the markets is just sick of bullshit. So that's how I really feel about it.
So here's what's interesting, right? We talked about pharmaceuticals, we talked about trucks. So if I'm just looking now, Eli Lilly, Merck, Pfizer, were all up, right? The on the pharmaceutical side, but importers of trucks like Daimler and RH, they took a hit. So overall, the market was a little up on Friday after the announcement, but there is like some folks that took a hit. You know what I'm saying? So I guess the what's trying to be.
I mean, because their business just got so infinitely more expensive. So
yeah, but on the pharmaceutical side, where he announced 100, first of all, 100% is wild, right? And also, I don't know if you guys saw his his press conference where he said that prices will go down by 1,000%, and I was like, that's not how math works. But anyway, but I guess that the message is clear. He's saying, look, build it here or pay up. You know what I'm saying? Thing is, though, tariffs sound fine until eventually it does start to hit consumers. So are you expecting inflation to rise rapidly with these new tariffs, or what are you expecting, Corey?
Inflation is not going to rise rapidly. Prices are going to rise rapidly. So the difference between prices rising rapidly and inflation rising rapidly, right? Mm-hmm. Prices are going to rise rapidly, but I don't think inflation is going to rise rapidly. I mean, you know, yesterday's price is not going to be today's price. Mm-hmm. But I don't think every sector is going to get affected right away. So I don't think inflation is going to rise rapidly. I think it's going to rise, but I don't think we're going to see a rapid rise because I think Jerome is going to put an end to that. I think we're going to get a rate stabilization or rate rise soon. If Donnie don't stop with the BS, I think Jerome gonna fight back. So you know,
so
that's what I really think. I think Jerome don't like. I really think Jerome don't like Boy at all. So
our first story, by the way, because we're talking about a couple stories that were relevant this week. The first story we're talking about now, for those who are just joining us, are tariffs. But you brought up something that's leading me to the second story that I wanted to talk about, which is inflation is holding at 2.7%. They're saying the core is 2.9%. But you know, spending is actually not changing, right? The personal consumption expenditure is how we measure spending, and spending is people are still spending. Looking at the data, people are still spending, but the prices aren't cooling fast enough. So inflation is staying stubborn. So that kind of limits how much the Fed can cut its rates. And you said that you expect a rise in rates. Is that what you said?
I said with no cut or um a rise. If he keep tariffing everything and taxing everything,
Mm-hmm.
it's the Fed's mandate to stop inflation. They're going to
Okay.
do their job. They don't. I don't know what Donald Trump think about that, but if he tries to rapidly rise the rates by using these, and then expect the Fed to keep cutting rates, he's in for a surprise. The Fed not going to do that.
So here's the interesting thing, right?
The Fed is just not doing that.
When does Jerome? When is his term up? Isn't his term up soon? That's is anybody in the chat that
And I think
that's
May
watching
2026.
May 2026? Okay, so we still.
I think it's like May 2026 or something like that.
Yo, somebody in the chat, let me know if y'all can look that up for me
Somewhere in
real
there.
fast.
Somewhere in there.
Yeah, when is Jerome's term up? I would like to know when his term is up. Because first of all, I wonder whether he's actually gonna, whether he's looking forward to just getting out of here. But I guess the other part is if his term is up, right, and he's replaced, is he gonna be replaced by a puppet? Like, is he replaced by somebody that obviously is gonna do what the other
It
side
has
wants?
to be replaced by a puppet because that's the president. Actually, Jerome. I mean, Donald Trump put Jerome Powell in.
Yeah, he did. But you know how that is sometimes. You put somebody in, and All right, so real quick, I saw a comment in the chat that says "White Boy Jerome." Who is that? All right, so that's the Fed chair, Jerome Powell. There's a running joke on our
Jerome
content
Powell.
where we call him White Boy Jerome because we don't know too many white boys named Jerome. Like we just don't know too many white boys. I mean, maybe y'all do. Maybe around our way though, everybody named Jerome look one way around our way. So I don't know, like in your neighborhood, but so that's why it's like a running joke. You know what I'm saying? Like. No, 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 no. We're talking about the Fed chair. His name is Jerome Powell. So, yeah, the chair. Yes, absolutely. So, yeah. So if y'all can look that up for me though, when is his term up? You know what I'm saying? When is his term up? Blah, blah, blah. All right. So, um, again, people are spending, but prices just aren't falling fast enough, right? So no matter how much you pray, those numbers aren't dropping, yo. So if you look at that, that makes the Fed cautious. They may not move fast enough for the market's taste. And Corey is saying he's actually, I think that's not necessarily a hot take, but it's interesting that you say you think you may get a rise, right? Because everything, and when I say everything, when I talk to people in specific businesses, a lot of times when I'm talking about the Fed rate, I'm talking to either bankers, people in the mortgage business, and I know a lot of it is them just trying to speak it into existence, but none of them is talking about rates rising. They're talking about rates dropping, and a lot of that is them trying to speak it into existence. But hearing you say that you think it's a possibility that it may rise is very interesting in terms of looking at everything from a macro level. So,
because listen, I think Jerome is going to stick his gun in Donald Trump's face before he roll out. Like, take that. Like,
all right, so we got a couple.
Give Donald Trump the business.
We got a couple answers right here. By the way,
Yeah.
I want to share with y'all. I got me a new mouse pad. You know what I'm saying? For those who want to see my new mouse pad, I mean, here's my mouse pad right here. But I digress. Because I saw a couple answers in the chat, so let me just get to these answers about when Jerome his term is up. Jamil said that his term is up January 31st, 2026. So we talking, the beginning of next year, right? And Brandon said that's the hoodest name, but it's a civilized white dude. Yeah, it's kind of wild. That's why we deem him White Boy Jerome. Cloud, I'm gonna get back to that question in a second. Let me see Kamari, who's in the chat, says Google says he was reappointed to the board and sworn in on June 16, 2014 for a term ending January 31st, 2028. So is it 2028 or 2026? All right. So we got another 2028. Brandon says 2028. 10 years. All right. So Yeah, I'm trying to figure out Jerome Wiley. What's up, Jerome? Yo, but I thought it was soon. So if it's 2028, that's 3 more years. Well, about two. We almost in 2026 now, believe it or not, which is
Hopefully,
wild to
if it's
say, bro.
2028, then we good. If it's 2026, we got issues. We
So,
got a lot of issues. So
so here,
hopefully,
so there's a question that we have in the chat. Cloud with TJ says, "Vu," or I like to pronounce it shit. SCHD. Which stock is better for dividends? All right, so a couple things. These are both ETFs, not necessarily individual stocks. They're ETFs. VU is the S&P 500, and shit is a dividend play from Charles Schwab. If we're talking about strictly dividends, I would say shit. And if we're talking about just as a something that you just want to hold one thing, I would say VU. I think there's a lot of overlap between those. But there's also more growth in VU. But see, shit is trying to do a combination of growth and dividends. I know a lot of people who strictly just buy shit and don't buy anything else. But I also know people that just buy the S&P and don't buy anything else. But for me, and again, anything we say here is not investment advice. It's for educational and entertainment purposes only. But if you're asking me strictly from a dividend standpoint, I would say shit. I don't know if Corey has anything different in terms of his answer about that. But for me, if you're asking strictly dividends, I'm going to say shit. I mean, shit is the shit. But go ahead, Corey. You got any thoughts on this?
I just think it's about what you're trying to accomplish, right? If you're
Well,
looking for
the
growth
question. Here's his
and
question.
dividend growth, then
His
VU would be
question was
better.
specific. His question was specifically about dividends.
So if it's strictly about dividends, then just looking at the numbers, SCHD pays a higher dividend. So
I mean,
if it's
shit is
strictly
literally it's three times.
about dividends, the higher dividend payer is looking.
Yeah, so it might
Yeah.
be a little delay. It might be a little delay here. I saw.
So that's why I
Apologize. Go
said
ahead.
if it's really, if it's about growth and dividends, then if it's about growth and dividends, then VU. If it's just strictly about dividends, then SCHD.
So it's funny because like I
That's
said,
my final answer.
shit is almost three times the amount. If not three times, I don't know it in front of me, but I think it's like three times the dividend from a percentage standpoint than VU. I think shit is it's close to four. It's like 3.5 or 3.6 or something. It's anywhere between 3.5 and 3.7 in terms of the dividend percentage. And I know VU is less than 1.5. It's like 1.2 or it's 1 point something like that. So if we're looking at strictly from a dividend standpoint, I would say SCHD.
Yeah.
But again, I don't think you can go wrong with either holding. Not investment advice. Just want to put that out there. Yeah, but someone give me the real deal on Jerome. So just found this. There's a formal process that's already starting. He said when asked about the efforts to find Jerome Powell's replacement as Federal Reserve Chair. His term expires in 2026. All right, so chat is saying May 15th, 2026. And I think I remember a few talking heads quoting this, is what Jamil says. So what are y'all thoughts on DGRO? I'll get to that in a second. But Kamari looked it up for me. Shit is 3.8 and VU is 1.16. So I was close. There. All right. So there we go. So if we're talking strictly from a dividend standpoint, I would say shit. You see his verbal lambasting of the UN's lack of ending conflicts juxtaposed to humanitarian actions in his assault on the UN, his steps tripping his wife and the UN teleprompter not working. Yeah, it's like a full reality show. What's going on? I thought that his conversation with the leader of Turkey, the president of Turkey, was even more egregious. Don, as we call him, VDon, because he's the ETF god. He says Shid's a better dividend play. He thinks VU is a better overall play. So that kind of encompasses what Corey and I were communicating. So depending upon what you're looking for, he said he believes that VU is a better overall play. But Shid, if you're looking strictly for dividends. Now, Miss Edie is here. Miss Edie, what's good with you, Miss Edie? I sent you a message in the village. You didn't respond back. I was still trying to get your lightning address. I need your lightning address in order to send you what you want on Friday. So if you can go to the village and look at where I responded to you, I know, a lot of people who don't spend a lot of time in the village is like trying to navigate it becomes confusing. But we could talk either inbox or within the thread. But I sent you a message in the thread. So, Miss Edie, if you can, I want to make sure that you get paid. But good morning to you, and thank you for pulling up as well. White boy Jerome don't like bull at all. Yeah, so that's what Kamari is saying. The white boy Jerome don't like the prez at all. Salute to Dwight. Dwight says, I appreciate you, brothers. Money, markets, and business talk in our community is necessary, and y'all bring it. Dwight, I want to say thank you for the kind words. They're definitely appreciated. And this is what we like to do, so we're gonna continue to do it. All right, so we got January, May in 2028, but it looks like everybody's saying 2026. The question is it January or May? Because January is right around the corner, whether y'all know it or not. January is right around the corner. All right, so a couple more stories I want to talk about while we're here, though. The stock market overall, it rebounded, but the entire week itself is in red. So the Dow plus 0.65%, S&P plus 0.59%, Nasdaq plus 0.44%, and that was all on Friday. But if we look for the week, we're down about 0.3 to 0.5%. But we have been on fire if you look at the last like 3 to 4 weeks. But this past week, overall, we're in the red. So it's a lot going on from an economic standpoint, from a macroeconomic standpoint. And I think that investors are balancing like tariff, rate cuts, inflation. So they're trying to figure out that balance of all these various things going on. So to me, when I see this, and I want to get your perspective, Core, it looks like it's a trader's market to me because it's very volatile. There's a lot of volatility going on. There's quick rallies, there's pullbacks.
Yep.
What do you think about this market overall?
Volatility is a trader's friend. So if depending upon which kind of trader you are, but it's because volatility equals money, and so this is great for traders. Because traders going to make money whether the stock market goes up or down. They want it to go one way hard, pause, or one way or the other hard.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a trader's dream. You know what I mean? There's just much more money to be made.
Yeah. So
what
would you say to the folks that aren't? What would you say to the folks that aren't traders, that are more long-term buy and hold investors? Like, what would be your, again, not investment advice, but what would you say to them in this market with everything going as crazy as it's going?
Three things. One, if you believe in your investments, DCR, don't worry about it. Two, if you're looking to do anything, put some dry powder to the side, put a couple of dollars to the side in case, if it go one way, then, if the stocks go down and you believe in, you can catch yourself something out there in these streets. Now you got some dry powder to catch it. Three, you got to start looking into world markets. Like, don't get yourself just caught in American markets. There's a global divestment from U.S. markets happening.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that, because I've been getting money in Africa lately,
that money
man.
is going.
I've been getting money in Africa lately, man. It's funny you say that, man.
So that's what I'm saying. There's a global divestment from U.S. markets in a lot of different spaces, and so you need to start to look at global markets as a way to hedge against that divestment from U.S. markets. Not that you should totally get out of U.S. markets. I'm not saying to get out of U.S. markets at all. I'm just saying to look at other holdings. It might not even be of a foreign market. You might just get into gold, or you might get heavier into Bitcoin or whatever. But don't stick all your eggs in the U.S. basket.
So again, I find that interesting as
that's all
I find it interesting as a thought, right? Because I think that I'm not disagreeing with you, but what I do find interesting is like that advice wouldn't have been great advice over the last couple of decades, like, because our markets have been going crazy. I just wonder, you know, Diamond Dave told me something a long time ago, and it's always stuck with me. He was like, "Listen," he was like, "If you're a pessimist when it comes to the market, and you're just always a pessimist," he was like, "one day you'll be right, and everybody will forget about all the days that you were wrong, because they're gonna say, 'Man, Jimmy been predicting this for 15 years.' They're gonna ignore the fact that 14 of those years I was wrong. It's just that in that 15th year they're gonna say, 'Man, you've been predicting this.'" So I think about that because, and I think about when you look at
What's funny is I'm not pessimistic about U.S. markets. That's the
that.
difference
No,
between me and
I
him is
wasn't
that I'm
saying
not
no.
pessimistic
I
about
wasn't. I
U.S.
wasn't
markets.
saying. I wasn't saying that you were. That's not what I'm saying. I wasn't saying that you were. This has nothing to do like with saying you're wrong. That's why I prefaced it by saying you're not wrong. I'm just saying that when you look at how our markets have been booming, now some will say that they've been held up, like it's not real. But even so, over the last several decades, our markets have consistently just boom and outperformed pretty much everything. So if I just look at, say, gold, right? And there's nothing wrong with gold. If I look at gold versus, say, the S&P 500 over the last like 20 years, and I'm someone that was only buying gold, I missed out on crazy growth, right? Um, so to me, it's just interesting. But I thought about what Diamond Dave said because he's accurate though. I've seen a lot of times when I see sometimes the market will have a bad day, and people are sitting talking about, "I told y'all that the market was going to fall." It's like you've been saying that for 6 years, right? But people will tend to ignore all the time that you were wrong if you're right that one time. So that's all I was saying. But when you talk about other markets, I do
Yeah,
agree with you that a lot of times we get caught up in thinking that our market is the only market. We're not even the only stock market. There's other stock exchanges across the world. And I do want our people specifically to look at themselves more as global citizens in 2025. I think we probably should have been doing that, but I was doing a lot of reading of some Malcolm's, right, and Malcolm often talked about the fact that we're global citizens. We get so caught up and we forget that we're global citizens, and there's a big world out there and there's opportunities everywhere. So just keep that in mind. So now getting back to the comments as well as the couple more stories we got. Lisa, what's up, Lisa? How are you? Thank you for pulling up with us. uh Cloud with TJ says thanks, we appreciate you. So um Jamil says DGRO in terms of price, holdings, and dividends versus VU and shit. So DGRO, I think that's the iShares. That's the iShares dividend ETF. So I got an unpopular opinion. Um, and my unpopular opinion is based on data, but I want to say this in the correct way because it's going to sound like a hot take. It's not really a hot take though. All right, so here's what I'm gonna say. Just looking at the data, and I'm talking strictly the data over the last, I would say, decade and a half, dividends are overrated. All right, now hear me out. When I look at the data, because of tech dominating our economy, and when I look at the growth of several companies, if I take companies that don't pay dividends and I'm looking at strictly their growth versus companies that are heavily dividend companies, over that time frame, I would have outperformed you. I know a lot of people like dividends because they feel like this gives them the ability to generate revenue or income, I should say, excuse me, income, and not have to sell off their holding, and that's fine. But if we're talking about from the standpoint of strictly growing your portfolio, growing the value of your account, I think we need to like really do an analysis and do some data, look at some data as it pertains to dividend companies versus growth companies. And I'm not saying that you just ignore dividends. Maybe you do a combination of both or some sort of hybrid approach. But I talk to a lot of people who are only focused on dividends. They're only focused on dividends. Now, if you're in retirement and you need that income to survive, for sustenance or whatever you need it for, that's a different story. But if you're just talking about building your portfolio, be careful going all in on dividends because you'll miss out on a lot of growth of companies that don't pay dividends, right? So over the last, let's say, 20 years, if I would have held Amazon and you're just like, buying Coca-Cola because you just want heavy dividends, I'm pretty sure I would have had a lot more money in my account, all things being equal, right? And I'm not just cherry picking because I can do this day in and day out. I can go a growth company, you can go a dividend company, and 9 times out of 10, I'm going to have more money than you over that period of time. However, just to get back to your question, because your question was specifically about that holding. Um, what I would say is look at the expense ratio. I think the expense ratio on that specific ETF isn't that high. Um, but I gotta see what the holdings are. I know they have a lot of finance companies in that. So It depends upon where you see finance going. 'Cause I know they're heavily weighted in the finance sector. Reason being, finance companies tend to pay dividends. So for me personally, though, I don't care about none of them. I'm trying to get as much money as humanly possible. If I'm looking for cash flow, I'm not looking into a lot of those companies. I probably would go REIT or buy an actual piece of real estate for cash flow. All right, so Thunder says, what's the young brother's name that's building his country in Africa? Is there any way to invest in things like that? I know a lot of people are doing work in Africa, so I'm not specifically sure about which brother you're speaking of. If anybody knows what specific brother that he's speaking of, please let us know. Because there are a lot of people, and I even got phone. Listen, I even know someone personally who's doing some development in Africa. So I'm not sure which young brother that you're speaking of, but if somebody knows, please go to the chat and let me know who he's talking about. How do you get into the global markets? That is a great question, Brandon. Is someone if you're just trying to get into?
I can answer that question really quick.
Go ahead.
I can answer that question really quickly. It all depends on your brokerage, right? If you literally just type in the name of the stock you want, it'll tell you what market that it's being sold on. So you don't have to try to get onto the global market. If your brokerage carries that specific stock or specific group of stocks, the ETF, all you have to do, if you know the name of the stock or the ETF, is to type it into your brokerage and see if you can buy it. Literally, that's all you need to be able to get into the global markets.
I was just going to say something even simpler.
It depends on your brokerage.
Even simpler. Go look up VXUS, not investment advice. That's Vanguard's international ETF, right? Which will give you exposure to companies outside of the U.S. market. So, again, not investment advice. I know VDON probably has a couple more mutual funds and or ETFs that he can recommend. But for me, start with Vanguard based on expense ratio. Vanguard iShares. Look up the various ETF companies. I've been investing, and I shared this, so I'll share it. I've been investing in Africa, right? So I have a ETF that is only buying things that are based in Africa, right? I'm gonna give you the ticker right now. It's AFK. So for me, and by the way, year to date, that ETF is up 53%. But the ticker is AFK. So that's where I've been pouring money into AFK. I bought a position, started dollar cost averaging. So AFK is where I've been putting my money. Not investment advice, but it has given me a great return. But that's one way to do it, right? All right, so with that being said, let's get back to these comments. Great question, by the way, Brandon. Thank you for that question. I like that thought. We are global citizens. I'm going to start using that. Absolutely, absolutely. So Miss Edie says, please forgive me. To receive Bitcoin and Cash App, it asks for proof of identity. Verification takes 10 business days. Is this correct or accurate? It probably is. Also, I know that you're in New York, and New York got their own wild rules about the crypto market. So, hey, listen, once you get everything verified, just let me know. We're not going anywhere, Miss Edie. We're gonna make sure we take care of you because we trying to get that red velvet cornbread. So we're gonna make sure that we do everything we can to make sure you happy. Listen, Corey was talking about that yesterday. Kamari said,
what
Malcolm
was I talking about? Oh yeah, we got to get some of that red velvet.
Yeah. Kamari said Malcolm did not care about patriotism at all, right? Listen, Malcolm said the earth is my turf. He didn't say those words. I'm not quoting Malcolm, but that's, I'm paraphrasing. All right, so Jamil says, Jamil says, I remember you saying that it's because of text growth. Dividends are overrated. People get upset when I say that, but again, I'm only looking at data when I say that. And I think that, and this is something, again, right? I watch a lot of documentaries. There's a great documentary on the building of Wall Street, and they go from the literal very beginning to now. They leave out the slavery market, but that's for another show. But I think that it's interesting that when something is working or something works, people are so afraid to go and look at the data and go a different way. How the market worked in 1920 is not how the market worked in 2020. But I think now things are changing so fast. A lot of times we're stuck in this. Oh, it's the reason why people are slow to embrace like Bitcoin, because the idea of something not being backed by the government and having value, people just can't wrap their head around it. But getting away from that, just looking at the market overall, a strategy that worked in 1960 and worked for a long time. Like, how many people are still using like 60-40 portfolios, right? They're doing 60% stocks and 40% bonds. Like, and people still swear by this because for a period of time that was the wave, that was the move. But sometimes you got to take a step back. You need to look at the data and figure out what's working for the current market that we're in. From an economic standpoint, this is why I like looking at macroeconomics, because when you look at macroeconomics, you see how things have just completely changed. And if things have completely changed, why am I still using the same strategies that I used, 15, 20 years ago? Now, there's certain things that are overlapping that'll always work in terms of just buying and holding long term. So I'm not talking about going away from that, but I'm talking about these specific strategies in terms of like, your balanced portfolio, what percentage you should have here versus there, or how you perceive dividends versus growth. You got to reevaluate these things and let the market and the data tell you which way you want to move, and stop being so emotional about it. I'm not talking about anybody specifically that's in our comments or anything that one of our panelists said, but I'm just talking about the idea of the emotions, right? This is why this book right here is one of the greatest books in finance, and I don't get paid to say that. The Psychology of Money is because once you recognize that it's all about the psychology, everything changes, right? You have to be open to new ideas, but you also have to understand that some of these old systems and strategies that y'all are using are based on a market from 30, 40 years ago. Things have changed, in the words of Christopher Latour Wallace, man, things done change. And if I look at how tech is dominating and how tech tends to take that extra capital and reinvest into growth and reinvest into that business, I don't necessarily care about a dividend per se. And again, me and Corey and Kamari were having a conversation yesterday. Once you understand that you can use those assets and borrow against them for actual dividends, I mean, not dividends, but actual cash flow to use to do other things, then dividends may not be as important to you. You want to grow your account to as high as possible. So if your goal is to grow your account, really take a step back and look at your portfolio and see whether you're weighted too much into dividends, because you may be holding on some stocks that just aren't going to get any more squeeze, that are just made for something different. A lot of y'all are holding on to 2,000 shares of Coca-Cola. Okay. I'm just saying, like, you may get some nice dividends off of that, but when you add in those dividends with the lack of growth, and I'm over here sitting on a super high flyer growth company, one day it'll all make sense, as a common one said. One day it'll all make sense. So I just want you guys to look at the data, be more data centric when it comes to your investing, and get out of your emotions. But I digress. All right, man. So with that being said, a couple more things to talk about before we get out of here, but I want to get to these comments. Jamil says, I think black folks came into the space focused on dividends with the generational wealth dog whistle. That's a great point. Also, historically speaking, we love real estate because it's something that we can see, touch, feel. Paper assets have always scared us as a community overall, right? And again, we do have history that backs up us not trusting institutions. So I'm not just saying it's just all our fault. Now, the thing about loving real estate and understanding from a simplified standpoint, I pay this to own the property, you pay this to live there, I keep the difference, right? So when you're bringing someone into a paper market, if you use that analogy of real estate and you can explain the dividend, that makes sense to people. It makes sense. Also, there were, historically speaking, again, there was a time when dividend-paying stocks were the wave. The point I'm making is they just may no longer be that, and we have to really stay abreast of what's going on from an economic standpoint. The military, brother, yeah. So, how do you factor in the cheap money factor from the Fed into the market as it relates to dividend versus growth? That's an excellent question. That's why that's why you're part of the panel, bro. So that has to be part of it, right? That has to be part of this analysis, is looking at the cheap money that has been, floating around the market forever. But having that cheap money, and that cheap money hasn't necessarily gone away. I was telling someone the other day, when I first got into real estate, when I first got my license, the rates, you were lucky to get a rate that was less than 10%. In fact, if you got a rate less than 10%, it was almost like time to throw a party. So we have to stop looking at how things were 3, 4, 5 years ago and just take a bigger look at everything. Sometimes you gotta zoom out. I say let's zoom out. And I say when you zoom out and factor in the fact that so much cheap money has been flowing into the market, that's why it enabled that growth to be what it is. So the question is, how much longer will there be cheap money? And will there be more cheap money? Because if it is cheap money, I expect growth to be what it's going to be. You know what I'm saying? There's a couple stocks I was looking at the other day. I forgot the gentleman's name. I like his content though. We talked about some of his videos before. It's a white guy on Instagram who does this thing on all his videos where he like points at, if you would have bought this company 5 years ago and bought this company 2 years ago. I don't know his name, but I do like his content. So shout out to him, whoever you are. But he had put up a one the other day. It was like companies over 1,000% in just the last like 3 years. Like there's companies the last 3 to 5 years that are up over 1,000%. None of them pay a dividend. You know what I mean? And again, it's easy to cherry pick. But the point is, and Don is in the chat, so Don will tell you, some of these growth ETFs are doing numbers too, where you don't even have to worry about picking the right player. You just pick a growth ETF and you're going to do numbers. You know what I'm saying? Ibrahim Traore, right? Ibrahim Traore from from Burkina Faso. That's where my family is from. For those who know, I did my ancestry not my ancestry, my African ancestry. You know what I'm saying? So, I found that out right before I found out who Ibrahim Traore was. But salute to Ibrahim Traore and the work that he's doing. I pray for that brother often because, me and Corey were having a conversation yesterday. He was talking about some of the studying and reading he's doing. And he was talking about how many of people he discovered who weren't willing to take the West money to try to build infrastructure in Africa. And I'm like, so what happened to these folks? He said they killed them all. It's not funny, but it's a fact of history. And a lot of those names get left out of history. They don't tell those stories. But, so I pray for Ibrahim Traore often. So Don says, and again, this is Vidon here. This is the ETF specialist we got. Better off focusing on growth during the accumulation phase and moving into dividends afterwards. That's kind of what I was saying. If you are someone who's closer to retirement, then maybe your situation is different. But if you're about building right now, you're building your portfolio, you're building your assets, then maybe you do want to focus more on growth. You know what I mean? So Jamil says, one of my homies is focused on VOO for him and his wife, but DGRO for each of his 3 children, ages 4, 10, and 16. Never heard of it until it's weak and it's, promised to ask your educational insight, not advice. No, that's no problem at all. So what I would say is if he's focused on his kids, not investment advice, I still will look more into growth because they even have a longer time frame than he does. To me, if him and I don't know his age, but if he's nearing retirement or close, he may want to focus on something more dividend based. But for the kids, I'm going full growth. I have a great nephew who I started a brokerage account for the day he was born, and he'll be 6 months next week. Or he actually just left here. He'll be 6 months next month, rather, not next week. He'll be 6 months on the 14th. And his portfolio was made up of 3 things, and we going and I would say about 75% of it is strictly growth. I'm trying to grow it so by the time that he turns 18, my goal is to have a minimum of 6 figures in his account. Because I think about if you turn 18 and you got a 6-figure stock portfolio, how different does your life look versus a lot of us who are first generation wealth builders. So I'm focused strictly on growth because listen, he has 18 years to get it correct. He's not even 1 yet. He has a long time to get it right. So we're gonna focus on growth. And it's 3 ETF. I'm not even I don't have a lot of holdings. He has 3 holdings and all ETFs. You know what I'm saying? And keep it simple, but be consistent and be disciplined in terms of contributing to his account. I got him set up on a DCA and we're gonna let it ride. So Amor said, is he speaking about Ibrahim Traore, president of the African country Burkina Faso? I believe that's who we're speaking of, Ibrahim Traore. So thanks. I appreciate you. You received the red velvet cornbread. We will congratulate. Hey, listen, Miss Edie, that's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to do. So Jamil says, how many folks invested in mutual index funds outside their 401ks? ETFs are moving the retail market. So Jamil, I'm going to give my brother Kamari credit. I'm going to give him and Courtney credit because they gave me a crash course years ago because I was one of those guys who had actual mutual funds outside of any sort of employer plan, and they broke down to me the not only the liquidity but the taxes and how it was more tax efficient to own an ETF versus a mutual fund. So I'm gonna give them credit, but I'm also gonna give myself credit. I'm gonna give myself credit because I was willing to listen to them, listen to their counsel, and take their advice. So I'm a strictly ETF guy, right? But a lot of times when you look at the mutual fund market, there's generally speaking, and specifically with Vanguard, as well as like some of the other big players as well. There's always like an ETF equivalent of a mutual fund. You know what I mean? There's an ETF equivalent of a mutual fund. So just check for the ETF. You literally can Google whatever that mutual fund is, ETF equivalent. Or as a Kevin Garnett says, equivalent. Never mind. For those that saw the clip, you know what I'm talking about. Coca-Cola. Okay. I was, I'm not trying to throw any shots at anybody, right? Because Coca-Cola, by the way, and I told the story several times, the two first stocks that I ever owned, all right, and at the time you had to buy 100 shares, was Coca-Cola and McDonald's. And if I'm being completely honest, when I bought those two companies rather, I bought stock in those two companies, I had no idea what I was doing. I was introduced to the stock market through an old head. He was explaining how the stock market works. And I'm looking around, and I'm from Germantown, right? So I'm in Germantown or Shelton looking around, and every store sells Coca-Cola, and there's a McDonald's right there. So those are brands that I actually know. So I went with brands that I know. I knew nothing about reading their statements. I knew nothing about their books. I didn't even know how to break down a company. But that also shows you the power of both of those companies' branding too, right? There's a value in branding. I knew the Golden Arches, and I knew every store around my way sold Coke. You know what I'm saying? Double entendre. Don't even ask how. All right, so all right. Kamari and Corey left me here, so I'm enjoying myself. This thing turned into a one of my podcasts. But anyway, the problem is most people don't have financial plan. They're just buying holdings that they think are sexy, but not holdings that serve their objective. That's also true. And listen, I ain't naming no names, right? But I've had people that tell me, I'll say, "Why? How did you get those companies in your portfolio?" And they'll say, "Fill in the blank on Instagram said it was a good buy." Listen, it might be a good buy. I just want you guys to make better informed decisions. I think we should spend more time working on learning than just just going around and grabbing things for the sake of grabbing things. I'm glad a lot of us are getting into the markets. We're taking investing seriously, but we need to really if you're going to be in the market, study. And if you're not going to study, just go buy VU and then mind your business. You know what I'm saying? The reason why I think that most people should probably just read like the J.L. Collins book, The Simple Path to Wealth, and do that is because I know that his strategy works for someone who's not willing to put in the time, effort, and energy. So I honestly believe that his strategy, which is why I love his work, I think it works for most people. But I also know there's some of us who really want to learn and understand. The thing I love about the market in general is that the market is kind of like a reflection of life. I see the world through the market. Anything that happens from a political standpoint, I can see in the market. Even things on a micro level here, I could see it reflected in the market. So to me, studying the market is really about studying life. It's the reason why I love real estate and land. It's kind of a study of life. It's not just about that asset. But most people don't have time, right? We're caught in a system where we don't have time. So most people are better off investing in themselves, finding out how to make more money, and just follow the simple path to wealth. And I think that'll serve most people, not investment advice. Also, I'm not going to Oracle of Omaha, but folks think they're going to BAC and KO dividends, not realizing he was early to the table. There's a lot of that people don't understand about Warren Buffett. If you actually read about some of his books, like a lot of his stuff is marketing. He's marketed as this wise old oracle, this grandpa figure. He's really a shark, and he's taking advantage of a lot of things in his journey. Not to say that he's not a great investor, because I think the one thing he has that most people don't have is patience, right? Patience is more than a virtue. It's an actual skill. Having patience is a skill. Hey, listen, this is my guy right there. Diamond Dave, I was just talking about. I was talking about some game you gave me years ago earlier, and then you go in the chat. Salute to Diamond Dave. He says easy money will drive more speculation into unproven companies that do not pay a dividend. That's part of what we're dealing with today, right? We're dealing with a lot of money, and as they call it, dumb money coming into the market, right? And also, a lot of companies are not even paying dividends at this point. You can sell cover calls to generate income on shares that don't pay a dividend. That's also true. And you can even do a poor man's cover call. I got some poor man covers called on some 2027 SPY right now that's paying a little bit of income. So there are other ways to generate income. This is absolutely true. There's so many ways that you can use assets in the market, which is why a lot of people believe that the stock market is the best way to create wealth. We were having this conversation yesterday about like using your portfolio to literally as leverage to borrow against. And if people knew, once you build up to a certain level, the way you can do that, because that's always the argument for my real estate folks. I could borrow against my real estate, do this. I'm like, I can borrow against the stock in my portfolio too. And a lot of times I don't need the same credit. I don't need to be credit worthy as you do. Again, I had a client in the past who went through a divorce. I'm not naming names because I don't do that. But he owned a bunch of property and he fought to keep his property in a divorce, and he kept several rental properties. But through the divorce, it was a bad divorce where both of the parties were trying to hurt each other. So they were doing stuff like, oh, that's in his name, I ain't paying that bill. Oh, that's in her name, I ain't paying that bill. So they ended up getting divorced, but they ruined each other's credit in the process, right? So, we can have a whole show on like, if y'all getting divorced, y'all ain't got to like try to hurt each other. But anyway, I say that to say this. He owned a bunch of real estate that he was able to keep in his divorce. And he was trying to get himself back together. He was like, I own a couple $1 million in real estate. I want to borrow against it. It was difficult for him to get a loan because of his credit, even though he had millions of equity. So imagine having millions of equity in something that you're not even able to tap into. That's one of the things about real estate that sometimes can be frustrating, is like the fact that it isn't as liquid as, say, the market. But hey, appreciate the super chat. More, as always, great consistent content. Thanks for sharing this Sunday. Thank you for always pulling up. Thank you for contributing, and thank you for all the great comments, questions, and ideas. So we definitely appreciate you, More. Salute to you. All right, so let me finish getting through this so we can get out of here, and let's see. Let's get back to the comments. Yeah, the cover call is definitely one. And Miss Edie says, yes, sir. All right, cool. So we cool, Miss Edie. We gonna make it work. How you can steal me and Courtney credit, mutual fund stuff. I didn't steal your credit. I gave y'all credit. I was just saying I was willing to listen, right? So me being willing to listen is something. Example, Don saying of a mutual fund having an ETF equivalent is the mutual fund of VTSAX, and the ETF equivalent is VTI. There's a number of that. So Dave says, what camera are you using for the stream? So Dave, here's the funny thing, right? I've been testing different cameras, different lighting. This morning's camera, I'm literally using an iPhone 16 Pro Max. And what I found is, I don't know how it looks on your end, but on my end, it looks a lot better than the camera I used in the past. I used a Canon a couple shows ago, and the iPhone, to me at least, looks better than the Canon that I had used. So I'm playing around trying to get my visuals and my audio a lot better. But right now, this morning, I'm streaming this literally from an iPhone, with my soundboard setup and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? So that's what's going on. I still don't know why I got the soundboard working correctly, but we'll see. Double entendre, I caught that. All right, Miss Edie, I'm just all right. Poor man's equals synthetic. Yes. So that's a different term for it, Jamil. Some people call it synthetic, and some people call it poor man's cover call, but that's basically what we're talking about. Yes. Oh, I appreciate that. Kamari is saying that it does look better, right? So yeah, I'm just testing out different cameras, trying to, I'm trying to get like Kamari Co. I like Kamari's lighting and all that, but Dave, one of the funny things that I find, because I've been doing streams and also just recording myself trying to figure out this thing, is, and I got to get better at this too. A lot of times it's the lighting. I was talking to my brother Karan yesterday, who's a professional photographer and videographer. And he was breaking that down to me too. He said a lot of times we focus on the camera when it's really about finding the proper lighting, because a lot of these smartphones in 2025 have very powerful cameras, but what you got to figure out, and I'm still working on, because I thought that my camera was terrible. I tried something different on Friday, and looking back at Friday's stream, I thought it was terrible. That's why I said, let me try the phone again this morning. But what I realized on Friday is my lighting was this terrible. So I got to figure that out, but it's a work in progress though. It's a work in progress. Personal bet. All right. So listen. So this morning we talked about inflation and how inflation is, kind of still in a problem. So, the Fed is having issues in terms of making that decision. We talked about the tariffs that are going on. with the president announcing new tariffs and trying to figure out how to use that as a market. We talked about a lot of things. We talked about dividends versus growth. Shout out to everybody that pulled up on the live stream. The only thing I want to leave you guys with is this. As we move forward, if you're not willing to do the research, right, it's okay to say I'm not willing to do that and just to buy an ETF. I think that all of us need to be invested in the market. There's too much money flowing back and forth in the market, not investment advice. But I think that as a people, more of us need to be invested into the market. However, I think that sometimes it's about taking the simple path and just buying a couple things. Like Don preaches this, like simplicity. Don is the ETF guy, buys ETFs, but Don has reached financial freedom just by being disciplined and consistent. So if we work on our discipline and our consistency, even taking a simple path to wealth, you'll get there. It may take a little bit longer, but you'll get there. The other point, there are some of us, right? There's some of us who are willing to put the work in, willing to learn the markets, willing to learn how to trade. And there's nothing wrong with that if you're willing to put the work in, but you have to be honest with yourself. Like, you know what I'm saying? So being self-aware is absolutely imperative. Cloud with it. Appreciate the super chat. From my perspective, why the stock market investing is not taught in school. You know what, TJ, this is an excellent question. We probably could do a whole show on this because someone from the school district, and I told the story several times on the show, I actually fought to have it in schools years ago. I'm talking 15, 20 years before it became cool on social media. I don't even know if Instagram was around then when I was doing this. And I always tell the story because it's interesting how I actually got a seat at here in Philadelphia with the board of the school district. How I got that seat was, again, networking. Bill Cosby saw some of my community work. Y'all can say what y'all want to say about it now, but what I'll tell you is, he saw some of my community work. I couldn't get a seat at the table. He said, I see what you're doing. I'm going to walk you in there. He had so much juice back then in Philadelphia that he physically walked me in and got me a meeting with the school district. And I had a proposal I've written out about teaching personal finance in school. And, they played me. They told me it was great. It was smart. They were going to work with me and get back into it. They gave me the Hollywood treatment. I say that to say this. I got a call recently, 2 weeks ago. They're talking about making it mandatory in Philadelphia schools. But the crazy part about it is, over this last, say, 2 decades, I think I've done a 180 on whether it should be taught in school. Now, maybe some fundamental things should be taught in school, but the problem I have is I look at how most of these schools teach history, and I wonder, when they teach personal finance, what will the curriculum look like? Are they going to teach our kids to be consumers, right? Are they going to, I'm worried about what that actually looks like. So to me, I think that it's up to us. And when I say us, I'm not just talking about, us here in Philly, all of us, everybody watching the stream, it's up to us to teach the youth. Because a lot of times we have to reteach them history, right? Because history is taught from a different lens, from a Euro lens, right? History is always taught by, the people that are dominant, right? The dominant. So I think that we have to be careful. I do think there can be some fundamental things that are taught, but when you dig down into finance, first of all, personal finance is personal, as we always say, and as Pastor always points out, personal finance is personal. But also, there's a way that our people specifically have to look at finance that others may not, because there's different places that we're coming from. So for me, I think it's really up to us to teach it. If they do put some sort of education, like they could put it as part of the math curriculum. Like, some things are just math based, but we have to be careful with just allowing, because what I find is a lot of times with these schools, parents will say, you go educate my kid. You know what I'm saying? I'll feed them, clothe them, and do all that. They just look to the schools to completely educate them. But when they come home, they have to be re-educated sometimes, or just given a different vantage point or a different lens in terms of how to look at what they learn in the classroom. It's an excellent question, though. I appreciate you asking that. But I think a lot of times this not taught historically, because when you look at the history of schools, and and maybe Corey's computer had messed up. Maybe when he comes back, we can, or next show, we can talk about the history of schools. But schools were meant to teach us to go work or to be laborers. It wasn't meant for us to build wealth. School was never anything that was built. If you talk about capitalism, like, we were the capital. We were going to school to figure out how to go work out in the fields or the farms, or what I'm saying. So the history of schooling isn't for us to kind of get ahead. Now things have changed, right? And for those that got out of that schooling that had the resources, they would go to seek higher education, do different things. But historically speaking, you have to look at what the history of school was for, and also the point of it, the point of school. So that's a lot of reasons why. So let's get into the. But I appreciate the question, and I know Kamari's watching. From behind the scenes today, he's not feeling well, but we're gonna put that. We're gonna write that down as something we should talk about, like finance in schools. Make that a whole show. But so thank you for that. Dr. Cosby doing his part. Yeah, he absolutely did that for me, right? And I don't have a picture up here. Kamari likes to share the picture on social media to laugh at me, because the day that he walked me into school, we actually have a picture together, standing in front of the school district where he walked me in. But once all the crazy news like popped off, it became a lot of my friends like went to my page and saved that picture, and they use it in their group chat jokes now. So it is what it is. From my experience, most are not willing to do the research. That's why I won't suggest or teach options. I stay away from teaching get rich quick at all. VU, BTC, DCA equals simple, set it and forget it. Jamil, here's the thing. You're not wrong with that. And I believe over a long period of time, you will outperform most people. That is very simple. It's very understandable. And now you can just focus on getting more income, working on your skills, whatever you do to make more money. So it's nothing wrong with that. Also, you're self-aware. You're self-aware. I've seen people who say they want to get into options trading and they'll buy options, right? And then they just like go about doing their job. Like I had one guy who told me he wanted to get into options, and I'm like, what do you do for a living? He says, I'm a trash truck driver. I'm like, so you're going to buy leaps then? No, I'm a day trade. How are you going to day trade in right at the back of the trash truck? I got my phone. Needless to say, it didn't work out too well for that gentleman, but bless his heart. So let's see. Earn Your Leisure University teaches in tens of our schools in the Bronx finances, unsure of the contents of the workshop. I mean, listen, salute to them. Salute to them. Me and Corey actually taught a class in EYL University a couple years ago. It was a Bitcoin class. I was showing folks back then how to leverage their Bitcoin. So salute to them. But again, I love to see the curriculum again, and those brothers are trying to do the work, so let them do the work, right? You know what I mean? But I think that even with that being said, I still think it's important for us when we get home to reinforce whatever they're learning, and also make sure that they're getting it from the correct lens, right? If I'm in school with someone who comes from a family that has multi-millions, and we're starting from the ground up, right? There's certain things that we're going to have to look at different. Personal finance is personal, but yeah. Salute to the Bronx. In today's world, we don't need the schools. Books and online platforms can get it. Mark Twain says, don't let school get in the way of your education. I met a brother yesterday at that conference. And I talked about this earlier. So we Kamari and I spoke at the conference. Corey manned our table. So all three of us were at a conference yesterday. The first ever emerging media conference in Philadelphia was held at Community College of Philadelphia. But there was a gentleman on one of the panels who has a whole community of Black dads that homeschool. It's like, I think his Instagram tag is like black dad homeschool or something like that. But I was listening to him speak and I was like inspired. Like, man, he was like, look, I'm not gonna let my enemy teach my kids. So he's, he worked on creating a community and platform of just like Black dads that homeschool their kids. So kind of believe what you're saying, Don. Like we can teach our own. So yeah, something to think about, man. Something to think about. Done. Appreciate that, Don. JT with the super chat. What's up, JT? How are you, beloved? Appreciate you as always. Miss Edie says it's a start. Yes, parents must reinforce everything at home. Correct. Absolutely. Listen, I'm not knocking what those brothers are doing. Salute to those brothers, man. I think that anyone trying to do something for the community, I appreciate it. Because I see too many people online and offline who do nothing but complain. Kamari shared a story with me on Instagram this morning, right? Deontay Murray, basketball player. This kid has sent him a DM asking could he cut his grass and get paid for it. And the kid was shooting the shot. And Murray says, if you show me some footage of the fact that you're cutting grass out there, you don't even got to cut my grass. I'll send you a couple dollars. So the kid was explaining to him, like, I'm trying to start my own lawn care business. I just figured I was taking a shot by sending you this message. And he sent him pictures of him doing other people's lawns. So Deontay Murray just sent him $600 for no reason. You know what? I like the fact that you're staying out of trouble and you're trying to build a business. Here's $600. So me and Kamari's like, oh man, that's dope. He just sent this kid $600, trying to keep him out of trouble. The fact that the kid was trying to do something. So I go in the comment section. Yo, some of y'all are just like, some of y'all are just hateful. a lot of the comments were like, he has $100 million contract. What's $600 going to do for someone? He needs to send more. That's not enough. Like, who does he think he is? Complete negative. I thought I was going to read the comments and have me a feel good moment. People like, oh man, that's dope. Way to help the young brother out. No one in this world owes you anything, right? I think a lot of us have to get that, understand that, right? Now, I think with great power does come great responsibility. I agree with Uncle Ben to a certain extent. But once you understand that nobody owes you nothing, right? And if anybody does something for you, it's out of the kindness of their heart. I mean, come on, man. But a lot of y'all are miserable, dog. I see like some of the most positive things posted online, and then I go to the comments, and it's like people will find a way to take a negative stance on pretty much anything. The one story I always tell in reference to this, I saw someone, right? Years ago. It was on Facebook. And someone was like, I love my mom. My mom has always been there for me, salute to my mom, blah, blah, blah. And in the comment section, someone said, you act like your dad is in your life. Your dad is in your life too. Why you ain't say you love him? I'm like, y'all will find a negative in anything. So I say that to say this: when someone is actually trying to do something in the community, in their building, like in teaching in the school, whatever, I salute all of that, because in my world, maybe I need to cleanse my timeline. I need to follow more I need to follow more than pages where they say, hey, give me $5 and I'll give you what's in this box, and then they end up taking them to I need to follow more of those feel good pages that all seem scripted now. But because my timeline got a lot of negativity. So what is that saying about me? Anyway, y'all, let me get back to these cameras so I get out of Ant's in the building. What's up, man? Appreciate you, Lake, but you here. Lake was still great. You know what I mean? Shout out to my man Flossie Carter. My kid won't attend school until high school. We getting the NIL. I'm mad at you. NIL changes everything, man. Next week, will you touch on borrowing against your portfolio for non-stock investments, real estate and businesses? Also to purchase primary residence, circumventing traditional financing. So, Jamil, before I get out of here, are you asking about borrowing against your stock portfolio? I just want to make sure I'm clear so we can prepare for that, because that's something that this is what you want to hear about. Because one of the things that I've seen people do several times, like a lot of people that slow down, say it. A lot of people that I know a lot of millionaires, believe it or not. And it's not because of the work I do, it's because I know a lot of people that work. Most of the millionaires I know aren't the internet millionaires. They're people that work, they're teachers, they're dentists, they're lawyers, they're doctors, and they own a home, maybe one or two investment, that's it, nothing major. And they have some sort of like 401k, 403b, 457. But one of the plays that I've seen a lot in working as a realtor, I have a lot of clients who are teachers. One of the plays that I've seen a lot is a lot of teachers have 403bs, and they'll build them up over time, and they'll borrow against their 403b to buy a house. The house will appreciate. They're paying themselves back in their 403b, and their 403b is tied to S&P or whatever it may be, and that's grown. And I've seen a lot of people hit six-figure millionaire status just by doing that alone. So I was just trying to figure out whether you were speaking specifically about stock or maybe like some sort of deferred compensation account. But we could talk about both, actually. I know it's dangerous, but I've been going down the borrow from yourself rabbit hole. DJ Level, I don't know who that is, but I'm gonna look him up though, since you said. Matter of fact, let me take a picture of that, because I want to look this up to get a reference point about what he's doing. Borrowing from yourself is interesting. It's very interesting. That's a whole rabbit hole. I once I studied with a guy by the name of Douglas Andrews. It's a pale gentleman who wrote a book called The Last Chance Millionaire. I flew out to Utah, studied with him, and his whole thing was borrowing against yourself. So it's a lot of ways you could do that. You got to stop following those $40 date pages. Hey, listen, man. I'm still, what the boy say, I'm still good. I definitely got to clean my algorithm. I think it's one of the reasons why I end up on TikTok, because I think my TikTok has the cleanest algorithm. I blame a lot of y'all though, and a lot of y'all watching. We friends on socials, and y'all be sending me stuff, man. So a lot of time when y'all send me stuff, I click on it. Y'all be screwing up my algorithm, man. Oh, I got it. Yes, in BTC. All right, so the BTC borrowing against your BTC is very interesting too. We can talk about that. We'll talk about that, Jamil. We'll talk about that, because I've personally done that. I've borrowed against BTC to buy real estate and then refi the real estate and pay back the loan on the BTC. I've personally done that. Oh, we said that's Vlad's last name. Oh, Vlad the Butcher. I didn't even realize. I don't even know. I don't know his name. Is his name Vladimir? Okay, whatever you said. Maybe that's his name. All right. I noticed last night someone sent me a clip. He had Takashi on there, and I was like, "Oh man, here we go." But I'm gonna end up watching it. I ain't gonna lie to you. I'm gonna watch it because Takashi is messy, so I'm gonna watch it. What's up? What's up? What's up? All right, so what's on? Yeah, definitely a crazy town. That wasn't me. Ant brought that up, man. But the algorithms are crazy because like you go down the algorithm watching one thing and you just get caught in it. I told y'all on Friday, I got caught in the algorithm last week where I was watching a bunch of content about black people who were from Ireland. And that was one of the funniest and most interesting things that I saw. Like black people who look like I do. They're darker than me in some instances with straight Irish accents sounding like Peaky Blinders. And that was like the craziest and greatest thing I think I've ever seen. So now I go on my timeline and it's still serving me. I'm on Black Ireland TikTok now somehow. You know what I mean? I got to get back to food TikTok, but it is what it is, man. Glad a Russian GI asset, but that's a whole other. Oh, okay. He's a Russian asset. I love the Vlad conspiracy theories. Oh, so his name's not even Vladimir. I didn't know that. All right. I remember him from back in the mixtape days. He was Vlad the Butcher. Okay. A Russian asset. By the way, Chris Crack is hilarious. Oh, I'm glad you got some joy out of that as well. For those who don't know what he's talking about on Friday, I was talking about how literally based on song title, I ended up on the rabbit hole of looking up this MC named Chris Crack, who has the greatest song titles in the history of hip hop. And I'll just leave it at that. With that being said, though, y'all, appreciate y'all pulling up this Sunday. If you're not in the village, please join the village by going to blackwealthrebels.com. Please join the village by going to blackwealthrebels.com. I say that because it's a lot going on there. As a matter of fact, if you're in the village, just this past weekend, I'll drop another real estate episode and another Bitcoin episode. The Bitcoin episode doesn't hit the YouTube streets until like next Friday, but it's already there in the village. So take advantage of getting that content early. And there's going to be exclusive content only for the village that you'll never see on YouTube. You'll never see on Facebook. You'll never see anywhere other than the village. So take advantage of that stuff too. But even the stuff that we put on the public platforms, like a lot of that stuff is back there already. The Philadelphia Rohan report, that probably won't come out till Thursday on YouTube. It's already been back there since Friday in the village. So if you can, go to the village and check out that new material, conversations that happen in the village, also things that we watch that maybe inspire us or be educational. We'll share them in the village as well in the daily chat. So I look forward to seeing y'all there. Corey finally got back on, man. You all right, bro? COINTELPRO got you, bro?
So no, it's not COINTELPRO. It's something going on with our what's the name account? Our what's the name account? It keeps telling me to add my credit card on there to be able to watch, and then it keeps clicking me off.
Yeah, I have no idea what's going on because I haven't got that. So we'll talk about that though. But we're getting ready to get out of here. But the one thing that I wanted to bring up to you, since you're on here, we had got a question earlier, right? And I went down a little rabbit hole, and I want you to weigh on this. Not now. I think we might do a whole show on this. But Cloudwood TJ asked a great question, and salute to him again for the super chat. He was asking me why the stock market and investing is not taught in school. So I was telling him that I've done a 180 and even thinking that it should be, but that led to me actually saying that we should talk about the history of schooling and what school was made for in the first place. Now, I don't want you to do a deep dive now, but I want to put that in front of you because I want to do a whole show talking about the history of school because that will explain why certain things are taught the way they're taught in the school.
Yeah, the short answer is that our government and our schools are not trying to create financial people. That's the short answer.
There
we
go.
We can go to the long form answer in another setup.
Yeah.
But
so
short
America
form
says
is that's not what schools are set up to create.
Yep, and that's exactly what I said, but we're going to do a deeper dive in another episode. So Mecca says, I've seen that story with the black tribe in Scotland. The leader reminded me of Chef from South Park. Well, yo, absolutely. Like, I went down a rabbit hole, and I was telling Corey on Friday that, I forget at times that our people are literally all across the planet. So finding them in places that aren't traditionally black spaces and seeing that, they picked up the accents and cultural norms, it's pretty entertaining for me, but it's also like, it's also fire realizing that the earth is our turf. You start off watching finance at 9 p.m. and you wind up on Dr. Pimple Popper at 2 a.m., the YouTube wormhole. Listen, we've all been there. We've all been there. We have all been there. Yo, my nephew, I got a 10-year-old nephew that was over the crib last night. He spent the night over the crib yesterday. And I was just I like when he's over, I like to look at his habits because it gives me an indication of like, what the youth are into. Dog, he was all streamered out. He was Kai Sanat, then this person, all streamered out. He don't even know what the stations are, bro. Like, you know how we grew up, we knew where CBS was and NBC, and we know even with the cable, we know what that. He don't even know what none of that is. These kids are so into streaming. It's wild, bro. Wow.
My kids can't tell you what about. I don't think my kids have ever watched TV on a television station. My kid, I'm talking about even my 18-year-old. I don't think my kids have ever watched TV on a regular TV station. You saw when my kids were when we first started this, when CJ was like 9 or 10, when we first started this, and you looked at his phone, what did you see?
No, it was shocking, right? Because I'm a YouTubian myself, right? I'm on YouTube pretty much all day. So I was messing with Corey's son. This is about a decade ago. I was like, there's no way you spend more time on YouTube than me. And I looked at his phone, I looked at his analytics, and it said that he was averaging like 22 hours a day. I said, yo, when do you sleep? And that's when Corey was like, well, he falls asleep watching YouTube. So it plays through the course of the night. I'm like, yo, people getting streaming dollars off your son just because his joint is on like 22. It's only 24 hours in a day. His phone said he spends 22 of them on YouTube. I was like, all right, so I can't even keep up with you. Yeah, but the streaming is crazy. These kids love streaming.
But that goes to your point about my son. My son has never watched regular TV, and it's like he couldn't tell you what regular TV is, what it looks like.
Yeah, man. Putting in the DraftKings parlay. Yo, I got to figure out for my fantasy team whether to put in Devontae Adams. Man, he's questionable right now. They're talking about he might play. You know what I'm saying? But my backup is the boy Dobbs from Green Bay, who been lighting it up. But so hurt Adams or a healthy Dobbs. So that's where I'm at with my fantasy team right now. Anyway, before kickoff, ain't the Leprechaun supposed to be? Hey, listen, I guess my 3-year-old navigates YouTube like a savant. Yeah, so it's interesting to watch the youth because you'll see where the money's going to flow in years. Eventually, they'll be the consumers. Ben Franklin wrote about melanated people being original inhabitants of Europe, including Germany, in his journal manuscripts that fear of said black planet is indeed real for ages. I gotta look that up, right? So again, I know what you're saying to be fact, but I haven't read the actual writings. I've seen it like on Wikipedia. A lot of the Ben Franklin writings that I've personally read are when he was writing under that pen name, when he was talking about money. I was reading about Ben Franklin. Because a lot of craziest part about that, Mecca, thank you for bringing that up, is Ben Franklin's advice on money is really conservative, but it kind of still applies. What was the name that he wrote under when he wrote under
I forget his pen name, but
it was Poor Something's Almanac.
I know Poor Something's Almanac. Poor Richard's Almanac.
Yeah, Poor Richard's Almanac. Yeah. Hey, $13 a month. That's YouTube. Listen, bro. I'm locked in at like $6.99, and that's why they got me forever. So it's kind of it's a gift and a curse. So I signed up for YouTube Music a week before it came out, and YouTube Music includes YouTube Premium, and they grandfathered me in. But the problem with being grandfathered in at a certain price is they tell me often. I'll get an email, hey, if you ever leave, you'll never get this again. I'm like, you don't gotta remind me. You low key bullying me. But when you get locked in with a grandfather, it's the reason I've had. It's the reason I've had T-Mobile since like the late 90s, the late 1900s. I've had T-Mobile because I'm locked into like some grandfather stuff. So they low key got you because if you leave, you ain't never getting that price again. If you're not putting up 18 hours a day on YouTube, you behind, bro. Yeah, man. Like I can't, these kids, bro. These kids in this streaming, like, and I know Kai Cenat and all them from being on like Twitch and all that. Like he was watching Kai Cenat on YouTube. I'm like, so hold up. He repurposes his stream on YouTube. So that means he's getting a check here too? Yeah, man. Listen, I want to salute all the young boy streamers because they tapped into something and they are running the bag to the moon. And I'm not an old head hater. I congratulate them. I want them to get as much money as humanly possible, just to be wise with it and, to continuously give, man. Because I've seen what's the young boy's name? The Speed Boy, Actual Speed. I've seen him do some dope stuff with the money that
Yeah.
he's generating, man. So I want to salute all the young boys who found a wave, because these kids, bro, they love the streamers. They love the streamers, man. You know what I'm saying? Kai just hit 1 million subs on Twitch. That is bonkers. So my question is this, right? Let's pocket watch real quick. 1 million subs. What is his average price point for his subs? I don't know his tiers and all that. Like, it's probably at least $5, right? I don't watch any of them. I enjoy their success, but that's how I am, man. Like I'm on YouTube. Like, it's funny. I found a lot of content creators lately that I watched who are like even older than me. I found a lot of older people are starting to kick ass in the content space. But that's the great thing about content creation is there's something for everybody. There was a gentleman on one of the panels yesterday at the event. His name is Josh Eats Philly, and he's a guy that just goes around Philadelphia eating food and sharing his stories. And dude got several 100,000 subscribers, and he was talking about turning that into a business, and he's a brother too. So I love to see people just create something out of nothing, like literally pick up your phone and now you have a whole entity. To me, that's dope. They said he's bringing in over $1 million a month. That is ball player money. Yo, it's a it's a clip. He had the boy Actual Speed had Kevin Durant on his joint, and Kevin Durant was like talking crazy to him, and he was saying like, I'm gonna share this, and something about I'm gonna share this on my IG, and he was like, yeah, all right, whatever. How many followers you got? And then that's when Kevin Durant realized that boy got like 16 million followers. He was like, hold up, how you got more than me? Yo, so these athletes, listen, these streamers starting to get more bread than y'all, yo. You know what I mean? Like, Anyway, man, with that being said, we appreciate y'all. Stay in tune with us. Please join the villas. Go to blackwealthrebels.com. Go to blackwealthrebels.com. Ant just gave me some new homework. I'm about to go pocket watch Kai Cenat just to see how much bread he making. You know what I'm saying? Because, I'm not an old head hater, but I do pocket watch, man. Shout out to JT, because I'm a pocket watcher too, man. But for me, I pocket watch to be inspired, not to be a hater. There's a difference. There's a complete difference of being inspired versus being a hater. And yes, I do get inspired by people younger than me, because if y'all get into it, I'm inspired, man. I'm inspired to go get more. You know what I mean? With that being said, tune in. Go to blackwealthrebels.com. We got a lot more stuff happening in the community. I got to say this. Saturday, and I'm going to make some short form videos all week, and I'll need y'all to help me by doing it. Share my videos. Next Saturday is our first Saturday school. The official Saturday school kicks off October 4th. We are in the community in Philadelphia, 108 Price Street. It's completely free. We're going to feed the babies. We're going to teach them, and we're going to play Monopoly and other board games. We got a couple different finance board games we're looking at, but Monopoly is one. I also got one called Blackopoly. It's called Blackopoly. Matter of fact, I'm going to make a video on that today and share that on socials. But October 4th, please do what you can to help support it. By support, I'm not asking you to send money. If you do want to send money, we take donations as well. We take donations. Hit the cash app. No, I'm joking. But just share out the fact that this is happening. The website is bthcamp.com. Our objective is to help as many families as possible. We're not looking to make any money from this. We want to pour into the community. This is our work. This is what we love doing, and we want to help the babies in the community. Look, even the at-risk youth, we don't care who it is. Adult, pull up October 4th, 108 Price Street. That's next Saturday. Saturday's coming up. So when I put the content out, I'm going to need y'all to share it for me, y'all. That's all I'm asking is for y'all to share it for me. We love y'all. We appreciate all the support. And, can't say enough, man. BlackWealthRebels.com. Please go to BlackWealthRebels.com. Peace. Stay safe out there, y'all.